Welcome back to Wake Up with Dr. Cheryl, and I'm Dr. Cheryl. Tonight we are live, and we have a wonderful audience here, and our special honored guest is Melba Beals. I am so honored to have you here. Well, I've read this book, every word of it. Anyway, you have lots to talk about, and I have questions to ask, and then I also would like the audience, if you're okay, to have a little Q&A at the end.
It's a must. It's
Yes,
a must.
yes. You're used to it anyway, I'm sure.
Used to it, yeah.
So, well, my goodness. I don't know where to begin with you except the beginning of Little Rock 9. And you came from Little Rock, Arkansas, which we did discuss in the last show that we had.
We did. We talked about it.
You have 2 books that are out, and you were on the Today Show and MSNBC. So, I mean,
Big list.
you are on fire, Melba. You're on fire.
Well, you know, I was writing that first book, I Will Not Fear, after I'd been in the hospital for a total of about 9 months, off and on, in rehab, rather, you know, in the hospital. And with my spine. Think before you have spine surgery, people.
Yeah.
There's also other ways to do it. But at any rate, I had been there for a long time, and with the blessing of the Lord and a very good doctor, I survived. And I wasn't ever going to write again. I thought, well, you know, I don't think I can. I couldn't think because I was full of opiates. And so you got to come down off of all that. I couldn't remember anything, you know. And
that's frustrating because you are a very well-spoken and educated woman.
But at this point, I was down in the dumps. I really was. And I began to pray really hard about, you know, what I'm to do next. I was very blessed because I had this woman whose name was Judy, who I met. And I remember meeting her, and a friend of mine introduced us. And I remember hearing her age and thinking, we're 2 little old ladies together. But Judy's like, you know, she's like Superwoman with skates. She like came in her tight brown pants and her little blouse, and I thought, oh dear, I'm in a lot of trouble.
And she's in the audience, by the way.
And she, you know what she did? She came to the hospital. When I was in the hospital, Judy came to the hospital. Talk about what you should do for your friends. Go to the hospital. Yeah. Because if you're in the hospital, you think you're going to be there forever. And she came to the hospital. Another friend of mine called a rabbi came to the hospital. Henry Schreibman, he came to the hospital. When you come to the hospital, my friends Pauline and Richard did, then that's important. And she came weekly, 2 or 3 times a week. And so when I got home, she was with me, and I started sort of writing. And what I came up with was things I was grateful for. The very first thing I wrote in this book was how grateful I was to be home in front of the window. And when this book was first turned in, the editor said, I don't know how you think you could have this much faith. Because all of my life, all I've ever had is faith. I mean, by the time I was 3, I was reading the Lord's Prayer, and we'd write the 23rd Psalm, and my grandmother would say, you know, if you're falling off the edge of a mountain and you're really, really frightened, calm down. First, determine if you can do anything. If you can't, enjoy the scenery, because God is with you. No, God's with you, and it's not going to hurt. It's not going to be a problem. You're not going to hurt. The people who you leave behind could. But at that moment, it's not your problem.
Grandma India.
Yeah. And so I was writing this book, and they kept gnawing on me about, you know, where'd you get all this faith? And I thought, well, I better explain to them where I came from. And where I came from was Little Rock, Arkansas. And in Little Rock, Arkansas, I grew up under Jim Crow, you know, sitting near a white person, sitting in the back of the bus, what was greasy and oily. If a white person came walking down the sidewalk, I spent every morning polishing my saddle shoes. If a white person came walking down the sidewalk, you got to stand off in the mud. See the mud? Got to step off. And your parents kept teaching you manners and laws that you had to obey. It was like, you're 3, sit down.
By the whites.
Yeah, sit down. If a white person says something nasty, you don't say anything back. If a white person hits you, don't hit them back. Ugh. Step off the sidewalk. Yes, ma'am. No, man. Never. Remember Emmett Till did what? He died because he looked a white woman in the eye. Never look a white person in the eye. Always look down when you walk. And so I was a pretty interesting child. I wouldn't have liked to have been my parents' because I was a weird kid.
Well, I remember reading, you said, why don't you fight them? Why don't you
I
stand
just
up
thought to
to 'em?"
myself, first thing, at home they'd be really neat. Very wide shoulders and attitude. But we go to the grocery store and yalsa, nosa, they become monkeys. They become kowtows. And I thought, even at 3, I thought, wait a minute now. I want to go home and play with my dollies. And we're standing here in line, ready to check out. We've been in line for 5 years, it feels like. And this white lady can't step in line in front of us. That ain't fair. And I just didn't like it. I really didn't like it. I remember standing back by the meat counter and having this old man tell my grandmother, you are one of the uppity, haughty ones. You like to get the neck bones with a lot of meat on them. We can give the other people, the stinky ones, the old ones, the rotting ones, and they don't care. But Grandma was very meticulous about what we ate. You are what you eat. So that's why I wrote the book March Forward Girl, because whenever things went wrong, my grandmother would say, excuse me? There is no complaining. And that's, my first book is called Warriors Don't Cry, because she sang this song every day. I'm a warrior on the battlefield for my Lord. I promise I will serve him until I die, but I will not cry. And so when this woman's asking me why I have so much faith, it's because I don't know how you grow up under Jim Crow if you didn't have faith. I don't know
just
how.
Just to survive.
I don't know how I would. My sanity depended on my believing that there was a God, that he was going to come get me, and that if I was good, I'd get out of there.
And thank God for your mother and your grandma India, because they were there,
all the time.
giving you all the positive feedback. And
my mother was an intellectual who was way into school, because my grandmother used to sit around the table and read Shakespeare. So both these people were studied people. My grandfather, my grandmother's father, had founded a local college for African Americans there. But at that point, you see, ladies didn't go to school. So she grew up, she was a maid. After her husband left, they split. She was a maid in white ladies' kitchens or in hotels. And we used to go to the back of the hotel in Little Rock, and she would give us food at the back. You'd never come in the front. What I think about now is I go to a hotel in Little Rock, that same hotel, same spot,
Today,
baby.
yeah.
I get the presidential suite. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And I have
you can do something
full
else.
car service and everything else I want, right? Things have changed.
Yay,
and I remember being a little girl having Thurgood Marshall saying to me, Melba, it's going to be all right. I was complaining to him.
Oh, Martin Luther King.
No, to Thurgood Marshall and Martin Luther King.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
And they both said, have faith. Things are going to change. So my life as a little girl was horrifying. I mean, every night I would pull the shades really fast at 6 o'clock. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure I still do that. I still, at home I can still call Judy. Don't close the shade, Judy. Are you? She's leaving at 4. I'm saying close the shades because I don't want anybody to look in, and you don't want the Klan to drive by and see you're doing something that they won't think you should do. And they'd come into our neighborhood. They'd kill a family. They'd kill an infant. Everybody'd be hanging up. And I saw that. And if you see that, you're afraid.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I was 4, I put this, I said to my grandmother, I said, exactly where did I come from, folks? And they said, the stork delivered you. So I said, okay, cool. So I put my red wagon right out front, and I said, that guy's got to come back because he's got to deliver other people, don't you think? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flag a ride out of here. I want out. And I don't remember anything about Little Rock except I want out today.
Yeah.
Today I want to go, And so that was my childhood.
It's amazing that you lasted until 14. Was it 14?
It was really amazing I didn't get killed. Because I was kind of, first of all, I was psychic. I'd go up to people and tell them what I thought was going to happen and da-da-da. My grandmother and my mother were offered like breads and chickens and pounds of bacon to let me read for other people. And finally my grandmother sat me down and he said, listen here, you write in this diary what you think and don't you say, the only words you're permitted to say to adults are hello, goodbye, yes ma'am, I feel good. Those, you don't say anything to anybody, because I'd go up to people and feel their tummies, and I'd say, "There's a baby in there, but your husband's gone, the daddy's gone," or I'd say things, and they'd turn out to be,
Now, were these white people or
these were black people.
Black
now,
people,
white
okay.
people, I knew not to approach.
Yeah, right.
I approached a woman one day because it was near Christmas, and I wanted to touch this dolly, and she slapped me. I was 4, and I touched this dolly, and I said to my mother, "Well, slap her back," And so what bothered me about being black was none of my people fought back. And then when I was 5, a man whose name is Mr. Harvey was hanged on the rafters of my church. And to this day, I can remember seeing his feet, what it looks like for his feet to be loose, and I can hear the sound in his throat when he went. And the only thing I could think about was there's about 70, 75 people in there. Y'all get a gun. Y'all die. 5 of you might die. 6 of you, but don't sit here and let that man hang like that. Let's all go with him. I don't care, So my philosophy was a bit different than theirs, as you can see. And I grew up thinking, I'm in the wrong place. I need to get out of here. So that's why I went to Central High School. I put my hand, what she said.
So you thought when you went to Central High School that was your ticket out of there?
Free at last.
Oh, interesting.
Absolutely.
Even all the caca that you went through. You endured so much that.
But it's my ticket out, baby.
Well, okay,
and
now look.
I have to tell you, people call me a heroine. I did not know when I registered for Central High School that it would be what it was. Because my grandmother kept saying, when we were in public, could say one word, decorum, and snap her fingers. And we would stand up straight and be quiet.
So proper.
So I did not understand that white people behave that way. White adults do not hit children, don't curse, don't threaten. Because, I'd grown up in this, you might kill people with ropes like the Klan, but see, in my mind, the people at Central High School, the parents of those students, and those students were different than the Klan.
Okay.
You see that?
But weren't any of those parents Klan?
I'm sure, but I wasn't old enough to know that. I was 15.
Oh, okay.
At 15, what do? Everything straight across. I'm going to go to this school. We're going to be okay. Pat Boone might even be there. Johnny Mathis might be there. I need new crinoline slips and new saddle shoes, right? And I'm going to be there for a while. I have ponytail, and I'm cute. I've got damples. Great body. I had a great body at this time because I was in a Jane Mansfield, and I, unfortunately, since I was a little girl, I had huge boobs, and I hated that. Except when I got to be a teenager, I realized that pitted against a very small waistline because Jane Mansfield taught me. So I thought, I'm cute. I had a great bod. I'm going to go there. It's going to be okay. After a few days, they'll say, well, there she is. It wasn't like that at all. Yeah. It wasn't like that at all. As you know, we all needed the 101st Airborne Troops, and it was a something school year. I mean, I've been standing in line before waiting to be hanged, and people talk about not believing in God. Well, excuse me, that is all I have is God. Yeah. If you're 15 and you're in line and you're waiting to be hanged, what do you have besides God? You don't have anything else.
So when did you have that short, connection with Dr. King?
We went to Central High School. We started high school on September 23rd, 1957. And after we'd been there for a couple of weeks, Dr. King came up. And he set up a date to meet with us in the basement of the president of the NAACP leaders. And when he walked in the room, it was like, wow.
Just his presence, I'm sure.
You think to yourself, that guy's someplace I'm not. And someplace I may never be able to get. Because he was so quiet and so humble and so divine in his presence. Mm-hmm. Even his presence was something different. And I knew as a Christian woman, raised by Christian women, that his presence was quiet and anchored and peaceful. And he came in, and instead of talking to us right away, he looked at each of us in the eye. And I'm always smart. I talk all the time. And so he was being quiet. And I said to him, Dr. King, I'm really upset because, blah, 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 blah. They put acid in my eyes and blah, blah. I have no social life and I don't want to do this. And that's when he said that line to me, that I hated at the time. And I still wonder, I think, oh my gosh, this line, But it would last me a lifetime, change my whole thought. He said this, he said, Melba, don't be selfish. You're not doing this for yourself. You're doing it for generations yet unborn. Never occurred to me I wasn't doing it for myself.
Well, at that age.
Yeah, I let it out, right? And so he tacked that line on my forehead, and I thought, oh my gosh, what does this mean? And I shut up for the whole rest of the meeting. I didn't say nothing.
I bet.
And we saw him 2 or 3, I think 3 more times. He came down, and he'd come in, he'd just check on us. What's going on? How you doing? You praying enough? You've been praying. You have to pray now. And talk to us about how education must play a role in whatever we do.
Amen. Oh. Yeah. So how did it happen that you got with the family in Sonoma?
Yeah, when I start talking about these incidents, I say, yeah, I had a horrible time growing up, but don't let that give you your opinion of who I am. Don't ever think because my skin is black and I've been a warrior and I am a warrior and I've had a really rough time. Don't make a profile of who I am. Because how I left Little Rock was I was taken in by Mr. and Mrs. Dr. and Mrs. George McKay. My daddy founded Sonoma State University. My mother was Quaker. My father was Quaker. These were white people. Now, when I got off the plane in San Francisco, my dream was I was going to be met by a black couple who had a subscription to Ebony magazine, and I wanted a portable phone.
The ideal.
I thought they're going to be wealthy, because I come from stone cold poverty.
How did your parents handle this?
Well, there was no question I had to get out. Like everybody else in the South, I'm from a mixed family, and I still have uncles and cousins that go for white, that live in Georgia or Alabama or wherever, and they're in the Klan. So my one cousin who was in the Klan called us up and said, hey, get her out of there. Oh. They're not kidding. We're organizing a group to come down there. Oh. We're going to catch us one. So get with the program. Oh, my God. And so my grandmother, my mother, it was so cute. They were with their sewing machine sewing overnight.
Getting clothes for you so you can look good.
Sewing clothes, yeah.
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 So they supported, why didn't they leave? Out of fear?
That was my question. When y'all gonna leave? Let's all go. But I think it's because they lived their life there forever.
Yeah, it's comfort. Even though it was unhappy on some of that fear level.
Yeah, they just didn't leave, But at any rate, I left. I got off the plane in California, and I get off the plane like 6 or 7 white people come running. First of all, I'd never been to San Francisco by myself. I'm 16 now, and I'm in an airport by myself. And these white people come running towards me. And I'm thinking, oh, I better move to the side. And when I would move over, they'd move over, right? They'd move their running path. And I'd think, why are they running towards me? They must be with the Klan. The Klan has followed me here. They're going to hang me, send the body back
right there
home.
In the airport.
Right, and send the body back home in a box to get the money.
God.
But that wasn't it at all. It was the mayor of Santa Rosa. He gave me a Bible and a cross, and they hugged me. Well, white people don't hug black people. What's this about? And he said, oh, come with us. And I thought, oh, my. They're still going to take me out and kill me. That's it. Got it. But who else did I know? I'm in California. I got to get in their van. So I got in the van, and they drove and drove and drove. And we went to this place, the address I'll never forget, first we went into Santa Rosa City proper. And the neighbors didn't like me there, and that turned out not to be a good idea. So that lady, that night, started calling people to see who would take me. And so they just called other members of the NAACP to say, will you take this child in? And my dad and mom said, yeah, they thought that she meant for like 24 hours or something, And so they took me in. And then that's when they learned it was going to be forever.
Oh, and now, and
And
then
it turned
look at
out
the
that
history.
it is forever. It is
Yeah.
forever. They've been my parents. I've been in that family for 58 years now. I still do Christmas with them.
Are they
We
still?
still
up-
they're still in Sonoma. My mom and dad are dead.
Yeah.
My mom just died about 4 years ago.
Oh, I was wondering. How about your?
My father died about 6 years ago. If you go up to Sonoma State University, there's a gazebo up there, and it says Dr. George McCabe. That's my dad. And I love them. Love them with all my heart. There's not a day goes by that I don't think of what my father and mother gave me, because they gave me my own equality without saying the words, "We love you even though we're black."
Oh.
They just treated me,
Yeah.
hey, when I arrived, the neighbors threw rocks. You know what my daddy did? I thought, what are we going to do? Oh my God, I was so scared. I was like in the house. Daddy went outside. He got a bucket. He put rocks in. He threw them back. He said, one act begets another. He took me for a swim in the Santa Rosa swimming pool. The guy objected. Daddy, he taught it at Santa Rosa, college up there. He got his teaching buddies. They put a card on a placard. They marched on that pool till the guy said, hey, come on in and bring your daughter. They took me to Montgomery High School, and there weren't any more black people there. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, somebody's going to do bad things to me. I mean, I one day saw this group of boys. Remember what the ducktail was? They had their shirts rolled up with cigarettes in the sleeve, and they looked like Elvis. And they came running over to me, and I thought, that's it. This is the day. They're going to beat me up. And they said, are you lost? Can we take you to class where
Oh.
Nobody ever touched me. Nobody ever said the N-word. Nobody ever did one bad thing to me up there. Not one thing. It was the expectation that almost killed me.
This is a perfect example of what my show is about too, is unconditional love.
Total unconditional love. And my parents, George and Carol McCabe, for their lifetimes, showed me nothing but unconditional love. And with all my heart, I'll go to my grave loving these people who taught me so much about my own equality. Because whenever anything would rise, my father would say one thing to me. I need you to remember, you're never less than my own daughter. Do you understand? You're never less than my child. Who are you? You were free at birth. You are free now. You are equal. You will always be equal. And I remember one time I got in a fight with my sister Joni. Fight. Joni says, you're out of the family. So I called up my daddy and I said, Daddy, blah, 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 blah. Joni put me out of the family. He said, meet me in Greenbrae at the coffee shop. So I met him there, and he drove up, and he said, Joni didn't take you into the family, and she can't kick you out. What did I say to you? You're never less than my daughter. I said, well, Papa, do you want coffee? No. Get in the car. We'll go see her. I'm not going to stay here with you. I want to go home and have dinner. Let's go.
Oh.
So, whenever anything went wrong, I just called him up.
How long did you think it took you to feel that trust and that?
Forever. The first year I was in their home, or
You
I'd go to
just
visit their home. First of all, we had this lady called Aunt Dot, and Aunt Dot was much older than everybody, and she would arrive in one of her ancient cars. Aunt Dot was very wealthy, and she owned several apartment houses in San Anselmo, and she would come up. And the first time all these older relatives came up, I thought, oh no. They old white people really hate you. And Dot came up and she said, well, you're just as pretty as George said. George. She's awfully pretty, George. Give your Aunt Dot a hug. And she and I became the closest of friends. She lived until she was almost 100. And so since she was down here, whenever we go up to family events, I'd go pick her up. And she'd get in the car with her hot stockings on and her dress above the knees, and she'd be 96. And I'd say, Aunt Dot, what are you up to? She said, never, ever is there a time to give up. You've got to be prepared to flirt. All right, then. So There's nothing in my heart but love. I call my sister Judy, who they're so different from me now. They do not know me as Melba. When I got there, my father renamed me Joy. My middle name is Joy.
Oh, right, yeah.
And so there's like 3 generations forward now. There's my sister. She had 4 boys and a girl. There's the boys. There's 3 boys and a girl. And then there's that set of kids, and they all just call me, they just all know me as Joy or Aunt Joy. And my one nephew called me up about a couple years ago, and he was in school. He said, Aunt Joy, tell them you're my aunt. I said, what's the matter? He said, he was in school, and he saw my picture in this history book. He says, I don't know why you were there, but I said, that's Aunt Joy. And the teacher said, can't be your aunt. Can't possibly be your aunt. He said, no, it's my aunt, And so I had to go and explain to the teacher, And so they've been my family. They are my family, And so when people say to me, well, you must hate all white people, I said, well, you shouldn't make that conclusion about me. I don't. And I know the difference between someone who has animosity and someone doesn't.
I'm sure you can feel it.
I can feel it.
I mean,
yeah.
Oh my God.
If you're black in this world, you better know how to traverse the world, or you die trying to learn. And it's interesting because my children don't have quite that same. They don't. I mean, I live with 3 generations, meaning that I have a daughter who's 50, but then I have adopted children when I turned. I was actually a little bit over 50 when I adopted an identical set of twins. Now, their philosophy toward being black is totally different than mine, which is they just don't take anything. They don't believe they ever deserved it. It ain't happening to them.
Okay.
And I remember that once,
From the get-go.
From the get. Once I had broken both my knees, so we had registered my son in a private middle school, and he was going to school, elementary, because he was in 6th grade. And so finally, like mid-semester, I showed up. And he's very fair-skinned. He looks like he'd be whatever.
They're adorable.
Yeah, they look like they're Hawaiian
cute.
or Italian or whatever. So this little boy screamed out, oh, you didn't tell me your mother was a nigger?
Oh.
And Matthew turned around and said, just didn't ever miss a beat. He said, well, that's not how I pronounce it, but guess what? Your mama ain't got the Congressional Gold Medal on her. My mama has. And she ain't never going to get it. That's all he said. And then once I sent them to play golf, and they were with an Asian babysitter. They were about 13. And I had called to the golf, I won't say which one, and made the appointment. But when they got there, they were not white. And the manager behind the desk got a little snitsy witsy woo. Well, my son jumped across the desk, said, and the horse you rode in on. We have an appointment. Give us our clubs. We're going to go play. So their attitude is different than mine. Their attitude is, we're here, we're equal, jump back.
Well, that's your teaching as well, I mean, there should not be any difference, period. We're all human beings. We're all one with spirit.
I'm saying
God.
what they lack is an expectation.
Oh,
I
okay.
allow that there's this little space in my life. For example, it never fails when I get on a plane. Here you go. Hello, Mama. I've got a wide bottom. I'm carrying a first-class ticket. You want me to come and speak in your whatever? Don't send me an economy ticket. I don't ride economy tickets. It's first class or not at all. So I'm getting on the airplane. I got my first-class ticket. And usually somebody's with me, and we have like a suit of clothes that I'm going to speak in or whatever. It never fails. The stewardess. Well, retire to the back and fold your suit and put it underneath the seat. Because I'm black.
Still today?
And she doesn't assume. Just happened a couple of weeks ago.
What airlines are you going on?
she doesn't assume.
Boy, oh boy.
She doesn't assume that I'm packing a first-class ticket.
Especially, they're not supposed to show any
I
kind of...
hand her my ticket, and it says, very important person. It's got this orange strip on it,
Yeah.
And she says, oh, I'm very sorry. I said, could you hang this up? Yes. I hang this up, right? Then later on, she keeps offering me drinks, and I say, well, baby, I don't drink. I really don't. I said, now, if you got some extra brownies, I'm your girl. But don't bring me any more liquor because I don't drink, And then she apologized, and, you're not going to tell anybody about it. And I said, well, we all work in stiffs. I'm not here to tell you, but next time a pudgy black woman gets on the plane, assume she's equal. and assume if she wants to ride in first class, she's riding in first class, you know.
Wow.
So yeah, you listen here. There is prejudice around the block, and in order to be black in this world, I got to tell you off the head, you have to have a sense of humor.
Big
You have to be
time.
willing,
Big
time. Because if you're not, if I go after every single person, A, I'm going to be blown out of energy.
Yeah.
And, you know, B, where's my soul going to be? God won't bless me because I'm trying to spread love around. I mean, I write in this book, I Will Not Fear, about going house hunting. I just went house hunting a few months ago. I looked at almost 100 houses, and my friend Judy can testify to you that she made some of the calls for these people. And there were people I'd call up and say, okay, don't waste my time, baby cakes. Tell me I'm black. Should I come? And one guy said, hell no, don't come. The neighbors are going to jump. This was going in Nevada. He says, the neighbors are just not going to like it that you're black. Don't come. And, you know, I would go in and out of these houses. Eventually, I sent my daughter, who's half German. I have my birth daughter's half German, and she went. And she would go in and she would, you know, secure her house. And then after she'd been there for like a day, she said, let me introduce you to my mother who will be living here, you know. And I would show up. But house hunting in Marin County's a bitch. And I remember about 10 years ago. Maybe,
I mean, the color today shouldn't even come up, period.
Please.
I mean,
I remember looking at Sausalito. And it was the year that I was elected Woman of the Year, you know, that in Marin County. And it was on a weekend, and it was on that Saturday that they had this big spread in there with all the ladies that are elected Women of the Year. And so this woman invited me, and she had the paper out at that point, just by luck. And she says, oh, come in. She said, you're Melba Beals, blah, 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 blah. And I said, thinking to myself, well, I have found a home. She said, oh, if you'd just gotten here earlier. Oh. But I'm prepared for these sort of things. So I always have a white friend parked around the corner or somewhere up the block. So I come out of the house and I call Ginger and I said, Ginger, help. And sure enough, she calls the woman up. The woman says, you come right on down. And she comes in, and the woman tells her it's available right away. And that's when I come back and I said,
yeah.
I could sue you, I just don't have time. But keep in mind, when you turn somebody down, you can't do that, you know.
No.
So no. I mean, I think that to live and do well, you have to have a sense of humor. You can't take everything personally at all. 60 Minutes was going to follow me around. So we were at this restaurant, who I won't name again, except say it was in Tiburon. And so they wanted me to find a place for dinner. So I walked in, and it looked empty to me. There was like maybe 10 people in this huge restaurant. Guy looks at me, just a very look on his face. He says, no, we don't have any space this evening. So parked outside is like a camera crew and, you know, 2 or 3 people. and one of them says, well, let's go in and tell them, you know, who we are and what we're going to do. And they go, and the guy says, oh, yes, welcome. You happen to come on a day when we don't have any, blah, blah, find yourself a seat, make yourself at home. And the guy said, you know, I would do that, but you were just mean to her. You just upset our subject. And so in order to come in here, we got to have that. See the lady over there? She got to come in. And you know, so it's here. But if you make that your chief, you know, the chief thing you worry about, you're in a lot of trouble. You can't do it. Can't do it, you know. I have to assume that every day is going to be a blessed day.
Yeah, absolutely.
That everybody I'm going to meet is going to be wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And move on.
You know, one thing I read, at one of the subjects, and, you know, I don't know if you'll be comfortable talking about it, but, you know, you married a white man.
I did.
And your mother, your birth mother, wasn't happy about that.
Mm-mm.
How did you get past that?
It was a big accident. You know, John, my ex-husband, well, I don't call him that
No,
anyway. Jay,
yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
came, he actually was brought to my house, and he was wearing a uniform that looked the same as the ones of the 101st that had guarded me in Little Rock, Arkansas. He was a specialist in the Army, stationed at Fort Berry here. And he was brought as a date for my roommate, who was white at the time. And I had like 3 or 4 roommates. This particular one, Mary Lynn, was white. And she had another boyfriend called Janos. And Janos, so she went out with him this Friday night. And so the next morning at like about 5 o'clock, this guy, Jay, I'll call him Jay, came back and was knocking on the door. And I said, hi, Mary's not here. And he said, I didn't come to see her, I came to see you. I said, well, I don't have anything to see you about, you know. And he
Now,
said,
you were going to SF State?
I was going there, and I was
Yeah.
living on Sutter Street in San Francisco. And I said, I don't have anything to see you about. I don't date white men. He said, I didn't say I wanted to date. I said, do you want to go and have breakfast? And I said, no. And I went back to bed. And I stayed in bed and I slept. So it got to be like 9, 10 o'clock. And somebody knocked on the door again. And I said, hi, who is this? He said, hi, I'm the guy who was here before, and I've been waiting. And if you're not going to go with me, I'm going to go down and tell the landlord that I came for you, but you won't go, and blah, 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 you know.
Determined.
Fine. Fine. So I went out with him, and what I found was the first and most important thing that happened was we went to this little restaurant downtown. It's a very famous restaurant down by where the cable cars are. And it was mostly filled with white people. There were no other black people in this restaurant. And we were having breakfast, and I had to go to the bathroom. So I stood up and started walking through the crowd, and this white man grabbed me and said, I told you I wanted, because some of the servers were black, I told you I wanted ice water. And I said, but I'm not. And he said, yes, and he starts to really scream at me. And Jay came over in his uniform, his green uniform, and he said, okay now, he said, she told you that she's not serving here. And the guy got rough. And so, of course, Jay was a specialist in martial arts and everything you could think of. He just goes and backs the guy up against the wall, and he says, okay, boo, he says, you're going to go out the front door, invite your lady to go with you, I'll pay your breakfast tab. And see the little lady, don't ever, ever, ever speak to people that look like that way again. It's not nice, you know. So I thought, oh, well, I'm safe with him. At least I'm safe. A couple other things happened that day, which led me to understand that this guy was whatever degree with his belts, and he was a specialist in martial arts, and he was in some big special unit. He was in a special unit of the service where they drop him down in the middle of a forest, and they'd say, okay, now make your way out, or find the other people, find the enemy and fight, right? So I thought, And the other thing was he listened to me. You know, nobody until this point listened.
That's
to
the
how,
message that I got out of that was
The
that
most
he
important thing
really
he ever
wanted
did.
to know you.
Is that he listened to me. And no one, not my mother, not my father, not any adult around me listened to me. Listened to how frightened I was, how sad I was about my life, wanted to hear what I really wanted. And he did. So I did marry a white man. And my daughter is his child. And I had like 6 or 7 very happy years with him, and I'll say why. Because he made me feel, for the first time in my life, secure. Nobody was going to bother me. Yes, we got into trouble in the sense of driving around San Francisco. But he was always going to make it better. He was never, ever, 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 ever going to let anything happen to me. And that feeling of security was something to behold for me. You know?
Well, yeah, especially the way you were raised.
The way I was raised.
Oh my goodness.
And he would just say, I don't know why you worry so much. You're okay. I'm not going to let anything happen to you, I promise you. And so for me, that was perfect. Now, if you flip that over, once I got stronger, now that doesn't work. Because he was in charge of everything.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to school. I'm not the little wife, as you can tell off the bat.
He wanted a barefoot pregnant wife.
Right. And I lost one child. I carried one, lost the second one. He wanted to go for number 3. And the doctor said while we were in the office, don't ever do this again. Some people are built to have babies. She is not. I know she's black, but she is not built to have children. And that loss really, how could I know that all these years later, God would send me a set of twins? And I kept reading that verse in the Bible that says, nothing's ever lost in God's universe. Well, I couldn't know then that I'd have the most fabulous set of little twins that I ever had in my life, you know. I got Maddie and Evan when they were not yet 4. And what can I tell you except they're heaven, you know. I couldn't know that then, that my lost child, Christopher, would be replaced by two babies, you know. So it was difficult. It was difficult divorce because, well, to this day, I've never been remarried. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I really liked him as a person. He's passed on, and in fact, when my daughter found out, she found out last January he died, that he was dead. She wouldn't tell me for like 4 months, I think it was, because she said, "You were just coming out of the hospital, and I think you could take it." You know, so
she's protecting you.
She's protecting me, yeah. So obviously, he was a soulmate. I felt he was somebody I adored, but my mother was on the other end of the phone saying, "Finish your school, get your doctorate. Black people have to be educated." And he was saying, "Stay home, have no babies," and it was like a conflict, a total conflict.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And he was very comfortable from a very wealthy family. The ladies in his family didn't need anything, and so that cultural conflict really was what we couldn't get along with.
Yeah. So tell us about when you got the Congressional Medal of Honor, if you don't mind sharing.
Well, that's kind of funny because I bought new shoes. Don't ever buy new shoes for a big occasion. Because, you know, you can only walk so far up to the White House. Once you get to that gate, you're not going to ride into the door that you're stepping out at, or at least we could. You could ride into this particular gate and then to a secret gate, and then you got to walk. Well, here are my new shoes. And I knew Bill Clinton very well because he knew my mother well, and he was really sweet. And they call him actually the 10th Niner because he was so good to us. So there was a point at which he's handing me the medal, and I'm crying. I have tears streaming down my face. And he says, "Oh, Melba." I said, "It's not you. It's my shoes." all day long, the newspapers wrote, "Melba Beals had this conciliatory, pensive thought on her face," or "Melba Beals seemed to be suffering." And Melba Beals was suffering because her feet were hurting because she bought new shoes. But it was a wonderful occasion. And at the beginning, we were walking down the hall. And life just happens in funny ways. There is this big picture that went across the country of Bill Clinton, President Clinton, walking down the hall of the White House. And I'm with him. I'm walking on the right side of him. And it's because I was hungry. And I stayed behind everybody else. They had this huge breakfast feast. And they called, 20 seconds to or whatever, come. And I said, "Listen here, I'm having that egg, I wouldn't give it up." And so I left the eating room late. And when I stepped into the hall, there's the president and all the Secret Service. So he said, "Come on, Mel, let's go. Let's go. Come on. And so that's how I ended up getting that picture. So it was a wonderful occasion. I had no idea how important that medal was. They called up on a day when I was, the babies were babies then. They were like 4, maybe 5. And they were, I remember what was happening. I had just stopped by McDonald's to get that meal. What's the kiddie meal? And I brought Evan home and Matthew home. And the house was, front stairs were filled with news reporters. And they said, "You got the Congressional Gold Medal." And I thought, I don't need another medal. I don't need another award. I got 100 of them, I just need to get these people in the house. They need to do their homework. I'm like, I was totally not with it. Then I went and I researched it and figured out, oh, that is an important thing, But you don't really know in your younger life. It's kind of like a movie going on, and you kind of witness it, but you don't understand totally.
Isn't there like 150 that have been given out?
No, almost 300 now.
300.
Only in the history of the United States of America.
Yeah, well,
other holders of it are, really Mother Teresa and really important people. So I'm blessed. I mean, I don't want to say anything other than I'm blessed.
Well, I think it's very important to be able to talk about it,
Oh, yeah, it's important to me.
You're honored here.
I'm honored. And I'm blessed, and, it's not like people think, you sit around and think about this stuff every day. No, I sit around thinking about, did I tape the soap opera? Is my underwear washed? Ordinary
And
stuff.
your boys and
My kids. I worry a lot about my babies.
getting ready for all your interviews.
Yeah, people expect you to be different than you are.
Writing your books.
I write a lot, yeah, and I read somewhat.
Now, do you write on your computer or do you write longhand?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Sometimes if it's very hard, I dictate to Judy.
Oh, okay.
Like if I'm
Dear sweet Judy.
Like if I'm it's really painful, and I don't know if I say to you that March Forward Girl was extraordinarily hard to write. And I was writing 2 books at once, and the doctor said, you need to go to bed. You need to not stay up. So I warn anybody who's 76, go to bed, because I had a small stroke doing those books. Oh. And it's just an awful experience, I have to tell you. You don't want to do that. I was in Marine General for about 6 days, and you don't want to do that. But at least I got it up. It was very hard. I had to go back to a therapist to dig up that part of my life, because the doctor has always surmised.
Going back.
The doctor has always surmised that I stay overweight, I go up and I go down, because when I'm eating, I'm stuffing memories, and I'd stuff that memory as many brownies, as many cupcakes.
You're not alone with that. That's
it's like I get down.
Men too.
Yeah, and then to have to dig it up slowly, you start having memories. And sometimes you have dreams and nightmares, you don't even know where they came from. And then when you match them, then that's difficult. So
yeah,
those were 2 difficult books.
Amen, and bless you for doing it. And what a catharsis.
It is good to see
the
story in the book rather than me.
And people need to see this too.
Well,
it's
everybody talks about Jim Crow, but you see, they don't know. Nobody's written about what does it mean to grow up under Jim Crow, and what does it mean to watch your parents kowtow. And I remember calling home to say to my brother, "Do you remember?" Because he's 3 years younger than when that man got hanged, and he said, "Yeah, you went crazy," and he said, "You didn't talk to anybody for a long time." And then I asked one of the other Little Rock Nine. I said, "Do you remember that?" And she said, "Yes, my mother took me to visit the wife of that man who was hanged. And she was pregnant, and that child was nuts. And, she could tell me a lot of things that I didn't know about. So, yeah, it was difficult, that book.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for opening up. And we're going to open this up to Q&A. So anybody has an opportunity in our audience here to ask questions
While we
have here.
A lot of good smiles over there. It's not like the ugly group came tonight. The cute group came tonight.
So please feel free and open to ask questions. Yes, go right ahead.
We talked about,
just speak up a little bit.
You talked about being in Santa Rosa and having all these white people, or even at the airport in San Francisco or Oakland, but these white people coming up and you feeling like you're going to get, hung or something. And I grew up here, and I'm kind of oblivious to color to a degree. It's just, and I see the difference somehow between the West Coast and the East Coast, and there is a difference. And I'm oblivious to a lot of it, and how do you get through to someone or explain it to someone that doesn't have the experience? It's like
very difficult. Well, see, you're absolutely right. If you're a cool black person, I can talk to other black people about it. I talk to Judy about it. Is that there's a difference in white people. If I go to the East Coast, like I just got back from New York, there's a difference in those people and how they see me and how they're going to respond to me than there is to be in California. I'd rather have California cool. California is my favorite place on earth. And when I was a little girl, my grandmother gave me a map. And I said right away, a globe. I want to go to the coast. I want to go to the edge. So I knew where I wanted to grow up. Because somehow in California, there is racism, but it's a different thing. It's a whole different, to me, it's not concrete racism. See, in the East, you've got concrete. You've got, like I can go to an Eastern school to speak, or I can go to an Eastern, just came back earlier this year from an Eastern school speaking. And it was this place where everybody was so wealthy, my God in heaven. It was like
Marin.
it was more than Marin. It was 10 times Marin. Marin is a casual wealth. I got it and you don't. The East is, hey, I got it and you will never ever have it, and don't come near it. I was sitting on, at one point I was sitting on the stage, and behind me sat the heads of every big corporation that I had ever heard of. And they really felt proud, because I'm not going to name the school, because it was one of those schools where you go to school in the first grade and they give you a house and a family to grow up with. And you grow up there except for summers, right? And you go from first to 12th grade with the same teacher as your parent in this house. And they were proud. They were like 400, and they had like 4 or 6 black folks there. And they said to me, did I ever want to come and do some of their diversity stuff? And I said, no, thank you. Y'all are not ready for prime time, you know. And so there is a major difference between degrees of people wherever you go. And if you're black, you sense that. There's even a difference in the kind of prejudice people feel. Some prejudice is, I just don't want to be near you, but I see you as equal. I know that you're intelligent. I know that you're not an animal. I know who you are. Other black is, you are an animal. I'm not going to come near you, and I have no respect for you at all, and I don't want to hear you. I think it's sad that I know these things, but to not know them is to fail in terms of job hunting, in terms of absolutely, some of the worst racism I ever got in my life was from a white nun. And so, on a job. And so, and the other thing you think in universities, it's people are more classically attuned to equality, but not necessarily. Next.
Oh,
Oh, me?
speak up.
Okay. Cool.
You stand up, honey. Stand up.
Okay, I did not know.
Good.
Well, I don't know if this is you or not. As a little girl, would you follow this program where few black kids would move into white schools? Did you do that? Or
Yes, in Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas, in 1957, 9 black kids went to the all-white Central High School, and there were 1,900 white children there. So absolutely, you got the program right.
Oh, I was thinking it was more like around middle schoolish.
We had that too. We had some people who were going to middle school, but that was a way of what? Of changing the texture of that school. That was the only way you could do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, now.
Hi, I teach middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and right now in my 8th grade classroom, we're actually reading about the Little Rock Nine, and I get the pleasure of teaching in a diverse community, and I live in the community I serve at a small school, and I was wondering if there was one message you could give to our youth, what would that be?
To the students or to you?
To the students, or to me as the teacher.
Both of you is that each of you is precious. And each of you is separate and wonderful. And there is no duplicate. And so you have not the right to not appreciate everybody. When you look at another person and judge them, you might as well wait to be judged. Because seeing equals being equal. You've got to see the world as equal if you want to be seen as equal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Norma.
Yes. When I get on computers, sometimes I feel controlled by them. I can't get it to do what I want. And it infuriates me. So, having experienced your life as you have, how did you manage to, when you felt controlled by people or habits or conditions, what did you find was your way of dealing with it?
Prayer. It's only praying. I spent my life as a child, still some of it now is controlled by white people who have more. When I worked as a professor, white people have more, they do more, they own more, They have what it is I'm bobbing for, what it is I'm stretching to get. And so that's a hell of a feeling. But the most important thing is you've got to know inside yourself what my dad and my grandmother said. You got to know your own equality and what you deserve. My grandmother used to say to me, God loves you so much, he has your picture on his refrigerator.
And he's as close as,
Right.
I remember reading, he's as close as your skin.
Right, you just have to touch your friend, and there he is. And so I've gone through life thinking that. Here you go, God's right here. I'm going to be okay. So it's not that I don't have rough, whiny, shall we say, bitchy days. Judy again is a testifier to that. Oh, mooch, mooch, mooch. But I am lucky that she's there, and she is somebody who really, really is quite strong and a believer herself. And so between the two of us, we're able to say, well, eventually it's going to work out. But you can go through a period when you have to reach really hard, and you just need somebody to say, hey, it's going to be cool, And a lot of times I say to myself, sometimes you have a really rough day. It's really good to say to yourself, God loves me. And that is all I can get out. God loves me. And then about, 1 or 2 o'clock, I say, and therefore, if he loves me, why am I behaving this way? Or it's going to be okay or whatever.
I'll ask for
Yeah.
forgiveness sometimes.
Yes, right. You got to ask for
when
forgiveness.
when I start thinking bad thoughts about drivers that are cutting me off or
Saying bad
flipping
things.
me off or
Yes.
whatever awful things. Forgive me.
I say to God sometimes, you're really embarrassed that I represent you. Because I say bad things.
Anne has a question or a comment.
I have a comment, really. I've known Melba since 1968, and being married to a black man for 50 years, Melba has been such an inspiration to me, and I love her.
I love you too.
Uh-huh.
We have a picture of ourselves when we were younger girls together. We do. Remember that picture we have? We have of
Yeah, I've
ourselves
seen it.
together. Well,
I've seen it.
you've seen it, yeah.
Yeah.
We did a lot of political stuff together. We had fun.
Thank you, Melba.
Thank you.
And you have a question?
This is a quick question. So this must have been an honor for you to watch Barack Obama become president. And did you ever have a chance to meet him?
Many times, but when he was first starting, I just called him a young whippersnapper, because Hillary Clinton is a colleague of mine. Hillary and Bill are colleagues. But then there was the day I knew. He was so brilliant. And I had to go to Hillary and say, hello. I had to do this. I have to go after him. I always, like my grandmother said, what is it? Let's see. The mountain is steep, the road is narrow, and the load is heavy, but keep moving. So I just decided, I suppose, to choose what would be a stiff lesson. I don't regret that.
And
But,
you know what? You have been, I think, a wonderful example for not only black women and men, but anybody. It doesn't, anybody.
Be entertained, that's all you got.
But you've survived, and you don't feel, to me, that you have prejudice in your bones.
Oh, no.
I mean, what an example!
Yeah.
This-